The castle loomed ahead, its spires piercing the bruised sky, an ominous silhouette against the bleeding sun. Shadows stretched and clawed at the landscape, twisting and writhing like tortured souls. The forest around the castle was dead, the trees mere skeletons clawing at the air, their branches crackling and snapping in the rising wind.
Jacob trudged along the narrow, uneven path, the hem of his cloak dragging through the thick mud. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. He had to find out what had happened to them, the villagers who had disappeared one by one, drawn to the castle by some unseen force.
As he neared the castle gates, the air grew colder, the wind biting at his face. The once grand entrance was now decrepit, iron gates hanging askew, creaking on their rusty hinges. He stepped through, his breath visible in the frigid air, and found himself in a courtyard overgrown with thorny brambles that seemed to pulsate with a sinister life. The castle door groaned open with a push, revealing a cavernous hall shrouded in darkness. The only light came from the faint glow of the setting sun, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. Jacob's footsteps echoed eerily as he moved forward, the silence oppressive and heavy. A whisper of movement caught his attention.
He spun around, but there was nothing but shadows.
His breath quickened, and he clutched the hilt of his dagger, though he doubted it would do much good against whatever haunted this place. In the center of the hall, a grand staircase spiraled upward into the darkness. As he ascended, the temperature dropped further, each step feeling like a descent into some frozen underworld. He reached a landing where a set of heavy wooden doors stood slightly ajar, a flickering light emanating from within. Pushing the doors open, Jacob entered what must have once been a grand chamber. Now it was a place of nightmares. The walls were covered in dark, writhing shapes that seemed to move and pulse with a life of their own.
In the center of the room, an altar made of bones stood, and atop it lay a figure shrouded in black. The figure turned, and Jacob gasped. It was the priest who had disappeared first, but now his eyes were hollow, his skin pallid and stretched tight over his skull.
"You should not have come,"
the priest hissed, his voice a dry rasp that echoed through the chamber. Jacob stepped back, but the door slammed shut behind him. The shadows on the walls grew more animated, forming grotesque shapes that reached out towards him.
He drew his dagger, but it felt like a feeble defense against the creeping darkness.
"They called to us, the voices from the other side. They promised power, eternal life, but they lied."
The shadows coalesced into a monstrous form, a mass of writhing darkness with glowing red eyes. It surged towards Jacob, who slashed wildly with his dagger, but the blade passed through the entity like smoke. The darkness enveloped him, cold and suffocating, dragging him down into a void where the screams of the lost echoed endlessly. As the last light of the sun faded from the sky, the castle stood silent once more, its secrets buried in the darkness. The wind howled through the empty halls, and the shadows resumed their endless, twisted dance. The castle had claimed another soul, and the villagers would continue to disappear, drawn to the malevolent force that ruled this forsaken place.